Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're exposing the 15 most useless talents in Mortal Kombat Mobile that are a complete waste of your points. If you've ever spent points on these, you might want to rethink your strategy, because these talents are holding you back big time. But don't worry, I've got you covered. In this video, we'll break down exactly why these talents are trash. If you're ready to upgrade your gameplay, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's jump right into it. Number 1. Mantis Stance. Blocked attacks do 10% more damage. Why it's useless? Blocked attacks already do reduce damage. Even with this bonus, they still hit weak. 10% extra damage on blocked hits is minimal, especially since blocked attacks already deal significantly reduced damage. Most players focus on unblockables. Aim to break the opponent's block rather than attack into it, making this talent irrelevant. Does not help special attacks, which deal the most damage. Number 2. Tiger Stance. 10% opponent toughness ignored. Why it's useless? 10% is too low. Most enemies have way more toughness than this can counter. 10% is too low to make a real difference. Toughness affects only basic attacks, while specials and brutalities ignore it anyway. Opponents with high toughness usually also have self-healing or shields, making this talent meaningless. Number 3. Gambler minigames receive a 20% bonus to their result. Why it's useless? Most players already hit 90 to 100% success in minigames. Tap circles, swipe arrows, etc. are already easy to max out with skill, so this barely improves anything. Does not affect X-rays, fatal blows, or brutalities, where damage matters most. Not useful in AI fights, since AI follows fixed damage numbers and doesn't rely on minigames. Number 4. Intimidating Presence. 20% opponent unblockable attack chance reduction. Why it's useless? 20% reduction is too little. Many enemies have 40 to 60% unblockable chance, meaning they'll still hit you. Doesn't work against unblockable specials, which are the real threat. Enemies with unblockable attacks also have lethal or critical bonuses, making this talent ineffective. Number 5. Stalwart Defense. 20% opponent critical hit chance reduction. Why it's useless? Crits are already rare in AI fights, making this talent useless in most battles. Does nothing against unblockables, DOTs, or brutalities, which are the real dangers. Some characters are immune to crits naturally, making this talent redundant in many matchups. Number 6. Reaver's Armor. 20% chance of lethal blow immunity. Why it's useless? 20% chance is too low, meaning you'll still take lethal hits 80% of the time. You'll less likely face AI opponents who deals lethal blow except modifiers and team synergy characters. Lethal blow resistance is better achieved through equipment gear, making this talent a waste of points. Number 7. Art of the Shield. 20% shield break resistance. Why it's useless? Shield break is not a major problem, as not many enemies focus on it. Also, 20% doesn't add more value because there is still 80% chance your character's shield breaks. Enemies with shield break usually have other ways to counter defenses like dots, so this talent is ineffective. Shield break is not a common problem unless facing specific teams. Number 8. Fujin's Boon. 30% chance to rinse DOTs on special attack use. Why it's useless? 30% chance is unreliable. DOTs will still affect you most of the time. 30% means DOTs stay on 70% of the time. Does not prevent DOTs from applying in the first place, meaning you still take damage. Modifiers like Bloody Bomb, Toxic Bomb, and Inferno deal dots significantly, so a 30% cleanse is too weak to matter. Number 9. Nightwolf's Chain Lightning. Every time a teammate is defeated, each surviving opponent loses 30% of their current power. Why it's useless? If your teammates are dying, you're already losing. This doesn't help. By the time your teammate dies, the enemy has already gained power and likely used specials. This doesn't work against power drain immunity or debuff resistance. Doesn't work well if the enemy already used their power before your teammate dies, making it useless against certain characters. Doesn't help you win fights. as it only delays the enemy's special moves slightly. Number 10. The Spirit of Vengeance, on player death, 20% chance to deal 20% damage to the opponent's current health and cause stun. Why it's useless? 20% activation rate is too low. 80% of the time, nothing happens. Does not stop the enemy from attacking after your character dies, so it's not a true comeback mechanic. If you're losing a character, you need survivability, not a small revenge hit. Number 11. Shaolin Last Stand. When you only have one character alive, immediately gain 1 bar of power and a 75% chance for unblockable attacks for 10 seconds. Why it's useless? If you're down to one character, you're already in a bad situation. 10 seconds is too short. Many enemies can stall or block during this period. Doesn't help against enemies with power drain, meaning you might not even get to use the bar of power. Number 12. Spec Ops Tactics. Teammate who tag in gain 20% increased power generation for 10 seconds. Why it's useless? Tagging in is risky, as it can be countered by characters like 11 Malawian Quatch's Jade, or if your character affected by blind after tag and then you less likely able to hit your opponent. 10 seconds is too short to make a real impact on power generation. Does nothing if your character dies before they can tag out. Number 13. Focused 20% damage boost against resurrected enemies. Why it's useless? Resurrecting enemies are not common in every fight, so this talent is wasted most of the time. Only applies to enemies that have already died once, meaning the fight is already drawn out. Does nothing against teams that don't use resurrection, making it a situational and weak bonus. Number 14. Combat Veteran. Every 750 points of toughness reduces critical damage by 1%. Why it's useless? Reduces very little damage. You need insanely high toughness to even notice a difference. Does nothing against non-crit attacks, which are the majority of enemy damage. Most crit-based characters also have unblockable or DOT damage, making this talent irrelevant. Number 15. Binding Blow. Combo enders have a 60% chance to apply Kameo Attack 2 cooldown to the opponent team for 7 seconds. Why it's useless? Kameo attacks are rarely the main threat, so stopping them doesn't matter much. 60% chance means 40% of the time nothing happens. Cooldown effects wear off quickly, making this talent nearly useless in long fights. And there you have it, 15 worst talents in Mortal Kombat Mobile that you should never waste your points on because of too low activation chances. Most have 20 to 30% chances, which means they don't trigger reliably. Situational effects only work in rare matchups, meaning they won't help most of the time, like against resurrecting enemies or shield break enemies. Better alternatives exist. Focusing on attack, unblockables, power generation, and healing is much more effective. What do you think? Did I miss any useless talents? Or do you actually use some of these? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one, where I'll be explaining which talent setups are useful and how you can gain more advantage with those talent setups. If you found this video helpful, drop a like, and if you're new here, subscribe for more Mortal Kombat Mobile tips, guides, and insane gameplay.